Finding a monitor for a MacBook has always felt frustratingly hard. Either you pay a fortune for something Apple branded, or you compromise on colours, contrast, features, and for a long time that felt like the deal. Either pay the Apple tax and get the studio display, or settle. Well, the BenQ MA320UP is the first time I feel like I don't need to make that compromise. This monitor comes in at around 1/3 the price of the studio display, and in some ways, the ways that really matter for day-to-day work, this thing holds its own. Let me show you why. So, what are we working with here? Well, this is a 32-inch 16:9 IPS LED backlit display. What really makes this stand out is the fantastic coating. This comes with a Nano-Gloss coating that gives you fantastic contrast. That really makes it stand out against the competition in this price range. It's got fantastic brightness with 550 nits that feels really punchy in use, and you might even find yourself turning it down. The contrast ratio comes in at 1300:1. That is absolutely exceptional for an LED display, and it's really starting to compete with OLEDs. For colour work, this thing is fantastic. It covers 97% of the P3 colour gamut and 99% sRGB. It does come with built-in speakers. That is not something you expect at this price range, certainly not nowadays. In this unit, you've got two 3-watt speakers. They're not the best in the world, but they're useful if you need to rely on them. For me personally, I'm working with a MacBook Pro, the speakers are fantastic, so I wouldn't usually find myself running through a monitor's speakers anyway. The refresh rate maxes out at 60Hz. That is a slight shame. It's never going to be great for gaming, and you will lose that feel of pro motion that you get on a MacBook display, but it is good enough, and the wins you get in other areas certainly stop you thinking about that refresh rate. If we take a look at the back of the monitor, we can see the ports we're working with. We have 2 HDMI ports, 2 USB-C ports and 1 USB-A port. There are no display ports, and some of the USB ports cover different functionality. The main USB-C port is the perfect port to connect to your MacBook. That offers 90 watts of power delivery, and it carries the video and audio signal. That means you can get everything you need from your MacBook whilst powering it at a very powerful rate. The second USB-C port delivers 15 watts of charging if you want to charge any other devices, and you can also charge via the USB-A port. Now, the design and the build quality are awesome. This genuinely feels like Apple could have made this. The stand is incredible for this monitor, and usually at this price range you'd expect the stand to feel like an afterthought. Here it really doesn't. It's got great maneuverability, and it feels really nice when you're doing it. You can tilt, you can pivot, you can even adjust the orientation to full vertical mode, and it works seamlessly. And also, if you install their software that we'll talk about in a moment, you can enable auto pivot. That means when you change orientation, it will automatically detect that and flip inside the software. You don't need to jump into any menus and settings, wasting time. It's really quick, it's seamless, and I find myself doing it far more than I would otherwise. There is options for VESA mounting if you wanted to put it on a monitor arm or mount it on the wall, but with a stand of this quality, I don't think many people will. The stand itself looks really sleek, and it's very fitting with the Apple design. When you have it sat next to your MacBook, it all feels like it's been thought out as part of the full ecosystem, and I really like that. And that consistency with the Apple ecosystem continues through to the software. This comes with colour consistency with MacBooks. Now, you have to be working in what they call the MBook mode, but that just matches the colours that you see on the screen to that on your MacBook. So if you're working on any colour work, maybe photo editing, video editing, that kind of thing, it's going to be consistent and really nice to work with. But let's discuss the resolution. So this is a 4K monitor. Now, that can set off alarm bells when you're dealing with MacBooks. MacBooks don't typically like 4K. The studio monitor, for example, is 5K, and the reason for that is scaling. So Apple like to ensure that the elements on screen stay a consistent size across different devices, and for that they try and stick with certain ratios. When you try and work with resolutions that don't fit that exact scaling, then things can get a little bit clunky. When you go up to the higher resolutions, the visual elements on screen can get really small. That can be a real challenge, so it's often a bit of a balance to try and decide what is right for you. Now, luckily, there are a lot of options that you can play with to try and get the most out of this screen, and I've had a chance to play with most of them. It can take a bit of complex maths to work out what is the ideal scaled ratio when working with a MacBook monitor, and I don't always have the brain power for that, so I took to ChatGPT to give me some recommendations, and I'm really glad I did. For me, there are a few key resolutions that you should consider. Firstly, native 4K, 3840 by 2160p. This will look incredibly sharp, but the elements on your screen will look really small. Now you might like that, you might like the extra screen real estate, but for me it was too much, and I found myself squinting to see the small text. The monitor defaults to 1080p, and I did feel like that would be a bit of a waste of its powers, but it does look pretty sharp actually. You've got a range of scaled resolutions that you could work with. These do work really well, but they can be a little bit more intensive on your GPU. The recommendation that ChatGPT gave me, and the choice that I think wipes the floor with every other resolution I chose, was 3008 by 1692. For me, this was the perfect balance of things being the right size on your screen and still looking incredibly sharp. I really enjoyed working with this monitor at that resolution. Now this is probably the space where this monitor falls furthest from the studio display, which comes in at a native 5K, and you get that perfect scaling without needing to mess with these options. But for me, this looks so good that I really don't think you're missing out on much at all. I think they've done an incredible job of optimizing this to make things look very, very sharp. When you're making these settings changes, you don't actually need to jump through all the painful Mac system settings menus. This monitor comes with some really good software. It's called DisplayPilot 2, and again, it's consistent in its design style with the apps you'd natively get from your MacBook. When I first saw I was advised to download this, I thought, oh no, that feels like a bit of bloatware that I'm not going to want on my MacBook. But it absolutely wasn't. This was a really useful tool, and there are some great features hidden inside. This is where you'll find the ability to turn on the auto pivot that I mentioned earlier. You can also do display partitioning if you want to set up two separate windows on your screen. You can decide which color setting you want, what brightness levels you want, and it's all really simple to do. So let's talk about what really makes this monitor stand out, that fantastic glossy screen. Now the contrast is absolutely fantastic. It's amazing for watching content. It's great for creative work. If you're doing video editing, photo editing, it looks fantastic. Now there are pros and cons to a glossy screen, and really you need to make sure you're working in the right environment. Glare shows up much more strongly on a glossy screen than it does on a matte screen. Now for me, I'm working in a studio environment. I can completely black it out if I want to, so I don't really need to worry about that. But that might not be your setup. If you've got lots of direct sunlight hitting your screen, or you've got big overhead tube lighting, then you might find the glare to be a little bit too strong, and you might be better off with a matte screen. And in fact, BenQ do make a version of this monitor that comes with a matte screen, but you're absolutely going to be missing out on that fantastic contrast. I actually feel like if you've got the right environment for a gloss screen and you make that transition, you will find it incredibly hard to go back because it makes a massive difference. Officially, this monitor supports HDR, but it's kind of in name only. It supports HDR10, and in practical use, it doesn't look fantastic. For me, it's not really fully fledged HDR, and the colours and contrast look so good in standard settings that I actually don't advise you to turn it on whatsoever. I've really enjoyed working with this monitor. I like the one cable setup. I'm usually charging my MacBook via USB-C when I'm sat at my desk anyway, so I might as well be sending a video signal. It looks really clean. The colours are amazing. The contrast is fantastic, and it's really nice to work with. Video content looks fantastic, rich, punchy, high contrast. It's amazing, and I've enjoyed watching things on here so much. So, I keep comparing this to the Apple Studio display, and that's a really tough comparison. That is a fantastic monitor. It's 5K, it's got built-in cameras, it's got built-in microphones, it's got great speakers. And if you really need those features, then maybe it's worth the premium. But for me, what really makes a monitor worth its money is fantastic visuals, and that's exactly what you get here. If you don't need those features, then save some money. This is a fantastic value proposition. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. If you did, then make sure you subscribe to see more from Digital Trends. I've been Sam, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.